is Kirt Purdy. I'm the creator, writer, and executive producer of Chalkboard Prison. Well, I came out from Alberta back in 2010 with my family, and at that time there was a glut of teachers on the market, so I couldn't even get a job as a substitute teacher anywhere. And what I did was apply to the prison, as a call had gone out for some teachers in the local prison system, the federal prison system here in British Columbia. So I went and applied and got hired, and from that an amazing journey began. Worked in a lot of the different prisons around the area and finally settled for almost 6 years here in Abbotsford at Pacific Institution. And that's where the genesis of this entire project came from, was the initial year of learning, the initial shocks, those big lessons that you only need to learn once, and a lot of the people that were surrounding me at the time, very interesting characters, and I thought, this is a story that needs to be told. About a year before the contract I was working with was finished with Corrections Canada, I had the idea of the TV show and being able to tell this story. And so I started jotting down notes and jotting down some of the memories that I had, some of the experiences that I had, and just some of those nerve-wracking, scary, exciting, comical things that happened in my classroom. And then I invented Stanley, whose last name is Purdy as well. But I invented Stanley in order to have this character live in the situation I was in. And as I developed Stanley, I realized, they always say write what you know, and so I knew my situation well. So Stanley was put into that, being a teacher who thinks the best of people, and realizing that those people might not think the best of you, or might not even think the best of themselves. And so as these different instances, these different things took place in my prison experience, it was lots and lots of subject matter for me to choose from. And as the story developed, it took on a life of its own, actually. Where Kirt ends and Stanley begins, that's a blurry line for me. There's a lot of crossover going through there. That's why it's so much fun to write them. I think for myself, having worked in the prison system and having been a teacher for many, many years, and worked with kids especially for many, many years, and with adults with special needs, I've worked with them for many, many years. I have a very long fuse. Nothing really rattles me too much. I don't have that real power struggle. That's not really in my arsenal. I just want people to learn and enjoy themselves and get challenged by learning, but get excited for learning. Whereas Stanley, although he has all of that, he definitely has a line that we'll see in the show where he has his agenda. He has that dream for people to learn, to have their eureka moments. And if something gets in the way of that, Stanley will definitely jump up and take notice and take action if necessary. Probably faster than I would and more comically than I would, but that's the art of the story. Going back as I was writing the initial concept, there's a lot more drama in prison than there is comedy, definitely. And one could say that same thing about school. As fun as school can be and as entertaining as school can be, there are a lot of very poignant moments, a lot of teachable moments, a lot of sad moments. Tempered, of course, with the reality that it's education. Education's a messy thing sometimes. As I wrote up the pilot, as I was rolling along, I found myself wanting Stanley to use his humor a lot, because I use my humor a lot in the classroom to diffuse situations. And even in prison I would use humor, sometimes to ill effect, but to try to soften the conflict and soften the dramatic event that had just happened. And because I do that a lot, it's a lot easier for me to write that that sort of a feel, that genre, the little snappy comebacks, little witticisms. And I find that Stanley, he's well educated, and his wife is well educated, so they're going to have some great conversations where they're going to butt heads, but they'll be very intelligent conversations and not even fights. And I also find that with the comedy, you can still go dramatic and make the comedy that much better. And so you have this comedic idea couched in a very serious place. I cannot believe the talent that is in this cast. Richard as Stanley, unbelievable range and talent, and you know, I just don't want to sit here and gush about all the talent, but wow, he really he is Stanley. When they call action, he becomes Stanley, and the way he embraces the role of this mild-mannered gentleman who then has to be, he jumps right into it. His frustration level, but his frustration is not the stuff we get frustrated with all the time. His frustration level is at himself and his inability to deal with this. Not so much all the stuff that's going on around him. It's like he can't deal with it. Richard's perfect at that. And JC is wonderful as his wife Ashley, and she's a type A, you know, got everything lined up, got life planned out, everything's raring to go. She's the breadwinner because she's working as a lawyer in the district attorney's office, and she's the rock. She's his rock, and she plays that so well. She's got that joie de vivre, but she's also very, very well-grounded, and totally confident. So I just love that. The other cast members that we have Henry playing the warden, and Henry's awesome. He used to do stand-up, and he's got great comedic timing. You'll love him as the warden, and his frustration with the way that, you know, he's being asked to do 10 things with the budget for 2. So he's an interesting fellow. Tosca Bagoo is Brenda, and she's playing Stanley's principal at the beginning of the show, and we will definitely see more of Brenda as the show goes on. And she just doesn't like Stanley. She doesn't like the idea of Stanley. She doesn't like the idea of a male kindergarten teacher, and she kind of makes his life miserable, and encourages other teachers to do the same thing. So that's an interesting role. Then we have Max, and Max is played by Giles Penn, and Giles he walked in and he was Max. He's smug, he's confident, he loves to fearmonger, especially with the new staff that come in. He likes to scare them, make them all nervous about what's going on. And I remember during the audition, after the first take, I wanted to punch him, and I never want to hit anybody. So he was Max right off the bat. Walter is the seasoned veteran. He's been there for 30 years, and he just keeps teaching there just because. Doesn't even know why anymore. It's just what he does. He wakes up, goes to prison to teach. Played by Ken Kramer, and Ken is he walked in and I went, oh look out, that's Walter. So that was a nice moment. What else we've got? Nancy. How can I forget Nancy? It's played by Linda Darlow, and Linda is a longtime friend, but she is so talented. She's got range galore, and she's Nancy. Actually, when I wrote Nancy, the face that popped into my mind was Linda, and she is not disappointed, and you will love her, as she's going to say things that we probably all want to say, but she just says them. We think them. She says them. She says what needs to be said, and sometimes she'll say things that don't need to be said, but she enjoys doing that too. And the cast is just so solid, and they're just all professionals. They all work so well together. As the show goes on, we're going to meet more and more of the inmates. We have some inmates who are what people would deem lost causes, and we're going to see how true that really is. And we're going to see some people that you have high hopes for that might disappoint you. And going to see some inmates who are in there for life who have resigned themselves to the fact they're in there, and now they have to make a choice. Am I going to make this the best living I can, or am I just going to be miserable for the rest of my existence? The stories are endless, and the cast, they can do it. They are so talented, and I'm just looking forward to this coming alive and just watching story after story. Yeah, I get to play a guard. I'm going to be the guard that drops off one of our key inmates, one of our featured extras. He's a giant, and I'll be dropping him off in the class on the first day for Stanley. And I don't really take care of Stanley. I should probably help him out a little bit more, but it's not my job, so I'm not going to do it. Because I only get paid so much, and I got lots of other things to do, so I have to look after the new fish. I had the pleasure of working with the director, Andrew DeVilliers, on 2 other projects of his in years past, and had a blast on those. They were a lot of fun. And when I was looking for a director for Chalkboard Prison, his name came to mind immediately. So I had a little bit of interaction with him, just kind of talking about the idea, and he seemed very intrigued by it, very interested in it. And ever since those initial discussions, he's been very, very helpful in helping me build the story and helping me build the character arcs to a point where there's a nice journey there. There's his directorial style is very, very good. Everybody's having a great time on set today, and he's just an easygoing guy, and we're so well prepared. He's made sure that so many things are all lined up for today and this weekend, and things are running just really well. I think I just jinxed the whole thing. I think I did. So, but Andrew, he's a great guy. It's been great working with you, and here's hoping that we can sit down and watch this on Netflix someday. So, thank you. Well, I'm very excited about the project because I believe that the story that needs to be told, the overarching story, is very important in today's world. Many times we can see people in the streets. We see the different tweets going out from high-level people. We see these little sound bites of people always wanting to just either sweep a problem under the rug or guillotine it, right? There's very little discussion. There's very little struggle now with dealing with so many things. People just want to have a quick answer and be done with it. And that's not life. Life is not that way at all. Life is a series of choices, and we make 500 choices to come to one event, and then we think that we can solve the event with one choice, and you can't do that. And so I'm excited to get that story out there, and the story of Stanley, who all of his tactics that he's used before might not work in his new situation. So someone who's never seen the show and they just hear about it, the hook is the fish out of water, of course. You got a mild-mannered kindergarten teacher surrounded by federal inmates, but also the fact that it's going to challenge their worldview for some people. I know many people I spoke with, as soon as I said I was teaching in prison, they said, why? Just lock the door, throw away the key, and when their sentence is up, let them out. That's not how I approach it, and I think there's a better way to approach it. I think there's more a way that's filled with much more humanity, and that's what the show is going to be about. The key of the entire story is that everyone's redeemable, and as soon as I say that, I have names and I have stories and images flash in my head of people that I have a tough time believing are redeemable, but that's my personal view, that's my worldview, that's my personal beliefs, is that anyone can be redeemed. I might not know how that can happen for them, but I believe everybody can come back from the abyss. And so Stanley, that's his views, that everyone is redeemable, everybody can be saved, and he tries to. The fun part of that is that his wife, being a prosecuting attorney, does not believe that. In fact, she believes if somebody does something wrong, they should pay the stiffest penalty possible. And when you come out, we'll watch you closely. So if you trip up again, no good. So we have that the whole idea of redemption. She still believes that society can be redeemed, but she believes society can be redeemed by putting away the bad parts, whereas Stanley believes that everybody can be redeemed. So his is redemption through education, and hers is redemption through incarceration, and that's the entire key of the story. A lot of people ask me why the name Chalkboard Prison. When I was a kid, that's what my student friends and I would call. I don't know who came up with it. It's probably somebody said it a long time ago, and a parent said it at table once, and then some kid brought it to class, and we all started calling our school the Chalkboard Prison. And so when we do that, we kind of impose ourselves as being inmates, and that all of a sudden we're being watched and nobody trusts us. And unfortunately, that's the way real prison is that they're always being watched and nobody trusts them. And that's really the sad part, because if you speak to the inmates, and I've spoken to many of them, I've spoken to all of them, but the ones I spoke to, there was always one common thread that they wanted. And that sometimes it was, I want my kids to come and see me at Christmas when I get out, or I want my girlfriend to take me back, I want my wife to take me back, I want my boss to give me a job, I want someone to hire me. It all comes down to trust. And all these people have shattered the trust of the people around them, of their community, but that's what they want back, in whatever form that is. They've got to get that back. And so that when you have your idea of a prison, in school you're trapped there for 6 or 7 hours a day, but then you get to go home. And as a kid, that 6-7 hours for some kids can feel like a prison, right? You don't have any rights, you can't have your say, you can't do what you want, you gotta eat what your mom and dad packed, right? That sort of thing. Whereas with real prison, although there's a parallel there, it's much more serious. And at the end of the day, you just go back to your house. Well, it's called a house, but it's their cell. They go back to their cell, and they're not free. They're not free at all. So there is a difference, but there is still that common connection, common ground. So this Chalkboard Prison sizzle would not have happened without the wonderful support of my family, namely my beautiful wife, Lori. Love you, babe. And she is somewhat a basis for Ashley in that she worked for 17 years as a civilian with the police service. So she worked on the side of trying to incarcerate the wrongdoers, where I was on the side of trying to educate them. So you can see the play there. It's very interesting. Write what you know. So I know that. So, but the rest of my extended family, there's been a few people who have really helped with a lot of support financially, and really helped they make this a reality. So I love you all. Thanks so much. And we're going to watch this someday on TV. It's your typical fish out of water story, where you got this kindergarten teacher now surrounded by criminals who've done horrific, ghastly things. And he's going to try to use what he used with kindergarten kids to the same effectiveness with people who are guilty of multiple homicides. Some of the things might actually work. Most of them won't. And he's going to get his own education. So this show is going to challenge what you think you already know about inmates in prison. It's going to challenge what you already think you know about your worldview. It's going to make you uncomfortable sometimes. Maybe you'll change a little bit from watching it, but I guarantee it's going to make you think.